asked yourself what your place in your family has done for you or how it's affected you long term? That's what we're going to be talking about today, because it absolutely does. It affects your work, how you are in relationships, how you see yourself, your habits, your behaviors, the way you think about yourself. So much of that comes from your family of origin and your place in the family. So before we get into it, let's jump into today's episode around how does your place in the family affect your career, your business, and who you are.
I'm Australia's leading burnout therapist, Sheena Shuey. I'm Australia's leading burnout therapist, Sheena Shuey, live from
Anxiety is not something that happens to you, it is something that happens for you.
Sheena, it is so nice to have you. I'm going to get straight to the point. What does burnout mean?
Oh, that is a really big question.
So, often when we talk about your place in the family, the first thing we think about, or a lot of people who aren't in my field think about, is am I the firstborn, middle child, last child, and the stereotypes around the baby or around the first child or the middle child. A lot of those stereotypes are often true. But a lot of them aren't, and they can be different for different people and different families. So some points to think about as we're talking about this is a really important point to remember is that 3, 4, 5 siblings can grow in the same household and have completely different experiences of your parents, of your childhood, of your siblings, even though you grew up in the same household. So I want you to remember that, because sibling 1 versus sibling 5 are going to get very different versions of your parents, of your siblings, because of different ages, life experiences, energy levels, all of that, right? And even if you're listening to this and you're an only child, there are going to be things today that we talk about that are going to affect you, because your place in the family is also affected by different roles. Was there someone who had narcissistic traits or very big, loud, controlling personality? Is there someone in the family, again, whether this is your parents or your siblings, that was an enabler? Is there someone in the family who mimicked the dictator in the family and got away with it? So sometimes we might see mother being a dictator and one of the siblings acting like it. So everyone in the family is catering to those two people's needs and keeping those two happy, because when they're unhappy, everyone's got to feel that and everyone's got to know about it. So is that affecting you? Often in families too, so we've talked about these big kind of personalities that might have some narcissism or egocentric, or like everything revolves around them and their perception and how they're perceived by other people and how the family is perceived by other people, and not really thinking about other people and not taking responsibility. Then you've got the enabler who helps enable that person and goes, oh, look, they've just been really working hard, don't worry about them, or they're not usually like this, they're just in a really stressful time, or your mother, she always says the wrong thing, it's okay, sort of thing. There's also other roles in the families that people can play, again, parents or siblings, whether it's the golden child. So again, that sounds like a child, and it often is most of the time, but the person whose achievements are almost like an identity for the whole family, or they're praised constantly, or they're the leader, or like everyone else goes, oh, look at what Wendy achieved, we're so proud of her. I'm a lawyer's daughter, I'm a lawyer's mother, or I'm a lawyer's father, or my daughter's a lawyer. Like really getting identity from that golden child. Then you've got the scapegoat child who maybe sees the dysfunction in the family, calls it out and goes, you guys are acting inappropriately. There is no boundaries here. There is no, respect. You don't listen to me. They're bringing up the problems within the family unit. And because of that, they're scapegoated. They go, oh, I don't know what's up with him lately, but he's just not being supportive of all of us. And they get a lot of the anger from the family and are left out in the family. Then you've got the forgotten child, which, unlike the golden child or the scapegoat, where the golden child gets lots of love and praise and are put on a pedestal, the scapegoat is seen as being naughty or disruptive or not going along with the flow. Then you've got the forgotten child, which is neither. They don't get love or praise, but they don't get picked on. They're just kind of like almost raising themselves. They're just left to their own devices. And that comes with its own stuff. Hyper independence. Not feeling like they're there, like anyone's there for them. Having to find love in the wrong places. Not fully opening up to other people. So you can see how the different roles in the family affect you. And then another role that's in families too is the peacekeeper. Someone who's always trying to make sure everyone's getting along. Now, sometimes that can just be the person who's the enabler. They also are a peacekeeper. But sometimes this is a separate role altogether of someone whose whole identity in the family is getting along with everyone, making sure everyone gets along. And you can see how in a workplace or as an adult, they might fall into the people person personality type. And if you don't know your type, you can take the quiz in the description below. But you can see how they've been raised to keep the peace with everyone. And so their whole identity and job and role is to keep everyone happy all of the time. And that can play out even in their partnerships and marriages and relationships too, where they're always trying to keep their partner happy rather than asking, what do I want? What would make me happy? They're sort of putting other people's happiness and needs first. And so as we've talked about this, really think about, first of all, what birth order am I? Am I an only child? Am I the first kid, the last kid? And which of these roles are my parents? Which of these roles are me? Because again, when we come back to birth order, if you're an only child or you're the first kid until the next baby comes, you've had all of your parents' attention, love, and affection to the point where maybe you've been over-parented and you may not have been able to do things for yourself, because part of childhood development is learning how to do things for yourself. Obviously not at baby age, but as you grow and develop. And this is your parents' first time parenting. So like anything you do the first time, you're going to make mistakes or not do it to the best of your ability. And so recognizing that if you're the first child or an only child, your parents were going to make mistakes with you more so than other siblings, or if you weren't just an only child, because they have time to learn and go, oh, okay, when we first had X, we did this, but this time we're going to do this around, right? So recognizing that, and they're going to be different ages. So if you're the first child, your parents' age, energy level, fatigue level, learning the mistakes is going to be very different to the last child. That being said, if you're the last child, the fifth in the family, third in the family, even second in the family, you're getting a version of your parents that maybe they've learned a bit more about parenting, but also they've got less energy, less time, less money to invest in you. And so there's that, as well as that you're not getting the same version as the first child or an only child got. And recognizing that can play out in different ways, that your parents weren't as invested in you. And the reason I bring this up is because Often when siblings and families get together and talk about dysfunction, or they'll say, excuse me, or they'll say, I've been going to therapy and something my therapist and I have talked about is X. And then a sibling will challenge them, or a family member will challenge them if you're an only child, like an auntie or something, and go, oh, well, this didn't happen this way, or this didn't happen. Well, that's your experience of my family, or that's your experience of my parents. But remembering that everyone will have different thoughts, experience, memories of that time, of that place, of your parents. They will all have different roles in the family, and that will play out in your adult life, in your teens, in group settings, until you become aware of it. Because once you are aware of it, then you notice it. And once you notice it, you can go, I like this part of me, or I can see that this part of me isn't working, or it's causing me issues, or I don't want to fill that role anymore, or I don't like the way that makes me feel. Or you'll also notice that you'll be doing so much personal work, you'll be in a good place, and as soon as you're around your family of origin or your siblings or your parents, it's like you've taken 10 steps backward, because they're triggering that old role or that old identity inside of you. And that is why it's important to notice this and recognize when it's coming out or when it's being triggered, which often is under high stress, high intensity, high pressure situations. So recognizing that and challenging that. And also asking yourself on, rather than just these roles, who's the reliable one in the family? Who's the one that when their parents are having an issue, this is the person that gets called, or this is the person that gets called for this, or who's the counselor in the family? Again, a lot of therapists have had to be therapists for their own families in some way. It becomes almost a habit. You know, a lot of us have experienced some childhood stuff that gets us into this work to begin with, so we get it. But often there is a child or a family member who plays therapist to everyone else but doesn't have anyone listen to them. Are you constantly listening to everyone's feelings, emotions, problems, but you're not getting that in return? Do you feel like you're giving more than receiving? Do you feel like the baby in the family where people constantly do things for you or help you, but they don't respect you or they don't listen to you because they will always see you as the baby? So where is that playing out? Where are you not used to being the leader? Has that stopped you because you're used to being seen as someone not capable, and now you've made that a self-fulfilling prophecy? So again, see how understanding this role, understanding these dynamics, understanding your childhood, which nowadays sometimes gets shunned. I think there's some shade being thrown about, I don't need to unpack my childhood. I don't want to go there. It's in the past, it's painful, whatever. I just want to work on fixing problems now. A lot of your problems come from your thoughts, your beliefs, and your behavior patterns. You can change that without checking in on this stuff, but if you want long-term lasting change, asking yourself what childhood patterns and behaviors and identities you've been given and have is game-changing, life-changing, so important. So don't glaze over it, right? Like really take a moment to think about these things and have a yarn with your siblings or anyone else who was around at that time, just to see what their perspective is. Because again, they'll have a different one to you, but just check in and go, and they might say, oh yeah, our parents have always relied on you and they've never asked me for anything. Or the other way, our parents never ask you for help, they're always asking me, and I get frustrated about it. Like, see how this can play out in dynamics, and you'll often find that it'll play out in your work and your relationships and even your friendships in the same way, because this is an unconscious pattern that we're trying to make you aware of. So I hope that that's clear. I know you would have got something out of today and something would have clicked for you. And don't be harsh on yourself when you remember this, or be judgmental of others, because we all go through this and nobody's perfect. No family is perfect. No family leaves this unscathed. So have some kindness around it, reflect on it, check in with your own therapist around it, and take care of yourself. And if you want to unpack a little bit more, like I said, take the quiz, check out our membership. We've got some really cool, insightful activities and mentorship every week that I use with people who, from any walk of life, high pressure industry, low pressure, working, not working, whatever that looks like. So have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I'll see you in the next episode of Burnout to Brilliance.